Hello, everyone, and good morning. This is Patrick at Qdabra, and welcome to our webinar. It's been a couple weeks since we have done one of these, so thanks for your patience. We do these webinars when we have new techniques that we discover or our customers tell us about, and I want to just thank you for being here, not just because we're presenting for you, we're sharing these techniques with you, but we're presenting these webinars because of you. We get inspired by your questions, your requests. And today we have two new techniques that we're going to show you regarding buttons, submit buttons and save buttons. And these are common in every form, so I think they're very useful techniques. We want to thank two of our customers. Preston Wood inspired us with the second technique, the pop-up that fades away, and Pointer Sproul, another one of our customers, longtime customers, also inspired us with this first technique that we demoed 2 years ago, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, we have a couple quick polls for you. I'm also happy to let you know that we have two of our esteemed members of Qdabra with me today, Mel Clemente and Don Brack, and they're going to be showing you how to do some of these techniques. So the first question really is a multiple choice, and it's a question of what do you currently do in your form when a user clicks save or submit? Do you show a pop-up to confirm success? Do you just save the form and close it? Something else maybe, and I'll ask you to chat us. If there's something else that you're doing, that might be a good topic for a future webinar. You can just chat that, and you can add a question to the GoToWebinar UI here and tell us what you're doing. It looks like most of you are just saving the form. About 25% of you are showing the pop-up, and the same is true for the recording, the date, time, and the metadata. And then we have 38% of you switching to a separate view, and now we have 88% showing the save and doing the save to the list. So thanks for doing that. One more quick question for you, and this is, do your forms automatically save? So this is a technique that we'll show today as well. This is the bonus technique here at the end. And this is a really important technique. We'll talk about why. Obviously, you can guess security and lack of data loss if users forget to save and go offline, for example. Okay, most of you aren't doing that, so that's great to hear. So 75% of you, I don't know how many people are filling out the form, but it's great to have you all here. Appreciate you being here. We wouldn't be doing these webinars if it wasn't for you. So thanks again for being here. So without any further ado, then let's just talk about these two quick techniques and do a quick demo. In fact, I'll do the demo first, and then we'll talk about them. So back in May of 2020, I think it was May 23rd, we're going to give you a link in the presentation to download the package. Kaoru Okumura, one of our longtime resources members here at Qdabra, and she's actually in Washington State with me, very close to Microsoft where we both worked. Kaoru demoed this technique to add CSS to your form, and there's a bunch of cool techniques in here, but what I really want to show for this webinar is a technique in demo 3. So when you get this form, you can upload it to Forms here, and I think it's self-contained. Mel, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this form actually does anything on load. It doesn't require any resources. So you can just take this CSS exercise form and just basically upload it to your Forms viewer instance, and you should be able to open it and just click on the demo 3 here. And so this has got the floating labels, which is a really cool technique, and we've talked about that before. But more interestingly, it's got this this button here at the bottom, and we're going to click on it and show you what it does. So when you click on it, did it do anything? I think that.
I think this form is broken. I gave you a link earlier.
We just demoed this. We had this working. Don, do you know where correct version is?
I sent you the link earlier. It's the one with the test.
I'm sorry. Why am I using this link? Okay, I'll use your link here. Is it in Teams?
Yeah, Teams. Okay. That one.
Okay, sorry about that, everyone. Hopefully this is the right link. Did we check the zip file? Everyone, did we make sure that that's correct there? Okay, so here's the form again. This one hopefully will work. I'm just going to click submit. So you can see when we submit, we're showing this spinner control. And why would we want to do that? Well, we want to do that if you have people that are clicking quickly and they may double click. And we want to prevent them from saving it twice or from running the logic on that button twice. Now, one problem with this technique, and the reason why we're not recommending it today, is that it doesn't stop spinning. It just spins. So it's kind of like, I don't know why we didn't think of this 2 years ago, but it's kind of silly. Why would we just do that? We want something that confirms that they've succeeded. And this is the second demo. Pops up a confirmation saying, "Hey, thank you," and then fades away. And so we have to thank Prestonwood again for giving us this idea. They had this literally, we've had forms around now for 7+ years, and they had this idea literally like a month ago saying, "Hey, wouldn't it be great if we could just show the pop-up but then fade away so they don't have to click on it?" So that's the second technique, and that's the better technique. Let's show that. So we have your form that we'll give you for today's webinar. This is a really simple form. It just doesn't have anything really on it other than these 2 fields. Obviously, you can modify it to be at the beginning of your form if you want. And this form actually has a bunch of things going on with it, but let's just try the save button here and see what we get. So you can see that we get that confirmation and then it just goes away. And that's nice because they get the confirmation that it did something. It logs the date time when they did it. And then it just lets them continue working. And the same is true for submit. If I click on submit and I haven't done anything, it's going to say, "Wait a minute, you haven't done anything. So let's do something." We'll change my name here. And now you can see it saves successfully. It updates the last date time here at the top, and then it fades away. Now that fade away is pretty quick, and you can adjust that to make it a little bit longer. Obviously, you don't want to make it too long. Now, if we wait long enough, and I don't know how many seconds it's going to be, but we're going to see this form automatically log me out and save. And is it 10 seconds still? Is it 20 seconds? 30 seconds?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. We'll just let this continue. Let's go back to our slides here. So those are the techniques. We just demoed them all except for the last one. And, you can think of why you'd want to do this. Number one, you definitely have to tell them when they click a button that something has happened and something has succeeded, or if there's an error. And that's useful as well. You want to show them, "Hey, we didn't save it. There was an error. Please check with your IT staff, to call this number, whatever." So you need to be able to handle the error messages. And we're not really showing that in today's webinar, but in the same fashion that you're popping up something, you may not want to fade away if there's an error. You may want to pop up and say, "Hey, you have to do something here. You forgot to fill out these fields." There's validation. We've done webinars in validation where we show how to display the fields that the users need to fill out. You can use the QRules command for validation. I believe it's what's the QRules command, Mel? Do you know what it is for validation?
Get errors.
Get errors. And then, so we've done this. Maybe what we'll do is we'll go off and maybe if you can find the last webinar where we did that, that might be useful to put in the chat window to show them. But the validation would be a great example of an error. Another error might be if you submit and it doesn't succeed for whatever reason, and they're disconnected or they're maybe there's a duplicate. Obviously, if you get 2 users editing the same form, you want to do locking, and we've talked about locking before. So the error message typically wouldn't show up. It shouldn't really show up very often. The only really valid error scenario is the validation one. But if you do have an error on submit, it doesn't succeed, then you definitely want to say, "Hey, look, your form didn't save." That's a problem. So that's important to tell them that. You also want to capture the metadata around the save and submit for purposes of measuring your process. Mainly, you're trying to figure out how long did it take this form to go from this state to this state. Who's got the hot potato? Who's not playing ball? You know what I mean? Are all the forms ending up in so and so because they're on vacation or out sick? That kind of information is useful. And so you want to put that in the forms audit log and then use that information to do reporting via Power BI or via one of these dashboard forms that we've done in the past. So that's important. It's also important because you don't have to do reporting on it. You can just stick it in the form. We'll show in a second how to do that. And then you can open up the form and you can look at who saved it last and what was the time and date stamp. And that's just useful because you might have a question. It's like, well, when was it saved last? So you don't necessarily have to push this data to a SharePoint list or a SharePoint library as a promoted property. You can just leave it in the form. And that's useful because sometimes you'll have a lot of different back and forth and you want to save all of that data in an audit log. So very fundamentally, you want to just save it, keep it so that you can answer questions about who did what when if you have an audit. The second level of benefit is when you're doing reporting to see who's got the hot potato, how long it's taking, where is the bottleneck in my process, that kind of a reporting thing. And obviously the fadeaway is nice because you get the less clicks. It's better for users. They don't have to use their fingers. They can just like, okay, it was saved if they're paying attention. If they're not paying attention, you've got that hey, last save date at the top, and they can look at that saying, okay, I must have missed the pop-up, but it is saved, thank goodness. And the other thing that's useful about this is to prevent them from double clicking. Now there's a couple things we're doing here where one thing is if they double click without a change, you saw the pop-up saying, hey, you need to make a change. There was no change made, so it's not going to save it. So that's useful. But it's also, if you have a pop-up or something, it prevents the double click, which can cause multiple saves if you haven't checked to see if that second save has a change or not. And you don't necessarily always want to do double saves. It can be a problem. In the case of Point of School, it was a problem, I think, because it's creating separate tasks. And then the tasks create a workflow, and that creates some havoc, some problems for them. So you would definitely want to prevent that. People, they're like, what's it's not working, and they're clicking really fast. So this also prevents the neurotic users from causing problems with your process. And then lastly, you want to have this auto log out. Let's see if this happened here. Okay, great. So you can see we automatically logged, expired the session. We're showing the user when it was last saved, and then popping up this nice message and allowing them to close the form. So that's useful because if they forget to save it, they go off and get coffee. You want to save it to, not stop other people from editing the form, but also to prevent security issues. So if somebody else walks by the desktop and they haven't locked it, oh, okay, I can change this form. I mean, that's pretty uncommon, pretty rare to think about that, but that's the reason. So yeah, so those are the quick things. I'm going to switch to Dawn, and Dawn's going to show us how. Let's see, who wants to go first, Mel, you or Dawn, on the transient pop-up? We're going to show them how to do that. I think that is you, Mel.
It's for Mel.
Yeah. Okay.
And if you have questions, I'm making you a presenter. Yeah, if anyone has questions, please do add the questions to GoToWebinar, and we'll answer them. Also, if you have any other techniques you can think of that we should be handling, please let us know. We're going to do an update on Performance Designer here at the end. We're working really hard to get towards 1.0. I guess, Mel, you're going to demo it in InfoPath Designer, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so yeah, this is a webinar demo form that Patrick was showing in Forms Viewer. So the three main pieces, or I guess that's it. That's going to be it for the pop-ups. Is first the resource file. So if you go to finish loading here, we'll see that we have a separate rule for loading the pop-up. So you know that these are the only two files that you'll need for that kind of fadeaway pop-up. So we've got the CSS and then the JavaScript. And then the other key thing that you'll need for that to work is the actual section on your form that is containing the message, the pop-up message. So here I have that section. And this container section, if I go to advanced, looking at the screen tip, I added a my div ID _ pop-up. So this is kind of new, I guess. We updated the swap class .javascript to whenever it sees a screen tip with this kind of, prefix, it will add this what do you call this selector as an ID instead of class, and I'll show you that later in the browser. So this is important. You can call this whatever you want, but the my div ID underscore is important, so keep that in there for the outermost section holding this pop-up message. And then next would be the my pop-up, the usual one. And then lastly, there are going to be 3 sections here. Lastly, the innermost section is the my pop-up section. And then here goes your pop-up message, what you actually want to display. So we've got rules here that on save, clicking save, it first checks for change, right? And if there aren't any change, we prompt, we show the set the pop-up message to no changes detected, right? And then here is the command. We're using a custom curls command. That's why we need that JavaScript to load and finish loading. And we just have a parameter of ID to specify what the ID is. And this is what we named our outermost section with, right? So then, and yeah, lastly, we set this show pop-up flag to 1 because in this section, we have a conditional formatting to hide it if it isn't.
How do you calculate if the form has changed or not, Mel?
Yeah. So here in check for change, we get XML. So we run the get XML command to, check the current XML. And then we store that in the this last main data source node, last main DS. So if it's not equal to the latest get XML result, then we set this has changed flag into true.
That's pretty crazy. So you're saving the entire form in a field.
In a field, yeah, an entire XML in a field.
Clever,
yeah.
Clever.
So then if it doesn't change, then we show this. Otherwise, we proceed to the next save rules, so including all the submit to the library. And then finally, the show pop-up, which is this time the success message. Your changes have been saved successfully, like so.
How do you do the fade away?
Yeah, let me show real quick the code, the code behind the scenes there. First, we start with the CSS. This is just the pop-up section. This is sort of the, you're going to think of this as the overlay, because here we'll try this one time. Notice that the background sort of dims. That's what is happening here in the my pop-up section. So we say this background color is the semi-transparent one there, and I want it to occupy the entire screen. So here is where I top, left, right button, 0, and all 100% height and width there. Okay, so that's the dim section of that kind of overlay section. And then this pop-up section is what holds your message. So the important piece here is position being absolute to the container section where it is. So that's why when I click on there, it is up there instead of, on the left here or in the center for that matter. So it's just always at the top of the screen. So yeah, that's just the CSS, and you can style it however you want, change your background color or what have you. But the JavaScript file here, this one is what sets the timeout. So we see it go away very quick because we specified the millisecond. This is in millisecond, 1000. So after 1 second, it goes away. So we will make an improvement. I plan to make this a parameter so you won't have to go into the JavaScript file and edit this, because you might want to change it to 3 seconds or 5 seconds. So in that case, we're just going to provide that as a parameter in the custom command. So you can just specify that in the form rule, but right now we have it as 1 second. Yeah, so that's it. What did you ask? What was the other question?
So if they want to add this to their form, they just take the resource file, the CSS and the JavaScript file that you have, and they just add that to their form. And then they have to go into each of these. They have to add the section to their form and make sure the section has those properties that you mentioned at the very beginning. That's
That's
it.
right. And since we're providing these templates, they can just copy this thing and, this section, the outermost, and then paste it on their form and just rebind, like change binding, because they're going to get unbound when they copy from one XSN
Okay.
to another.
Right, right.
So just change binding and point it to their actual fields, and all these screen tips will be carried over when they copy paste, so they don't have to like specify
So then,
this.
and the only other thing they have to do is just to make sure they load the resource on.
Exactly.
Can we show them
So,
real quick what the form is doing? Can you open the form and show the debug information so you can see that command running? Okay, there
yeah.
it is right there. Load resource pop up and custom pop up. Cool. What's the submit?
Yeah.
That's different.
And then,
Yeah.
then once we click on the save button, it calls for a custom command, a custom pop-up.
And the get
There,
XML is the thing that's comparing to see if it's changed or not. Why are there two of those?
every time the refresh also makes use of the get XML, the auto logout to check
Mm-hmm.
if there's a change, right? So every time the form does that, we call the get XML
Okay,
command.
so the auto logout is running every some number of seconds or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
5 minutes, I think that's it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any questions for Mel? Thanks, Mel.
Yeah.
I'm just going to switch back to my screen real quick before we switch to Dawn, remind ourselves of what we're doing. Next, Dawn's going to show how to do the auto logout, and believe that we did this. We have this link here to the previous 2020 webinar download package. If you can't get to this link, we'll include it in the package, the webinar package that you can download. If you fill out the survey, it was a 2-question survey here at the end. We'll send you the package later today, tomorrow, probably later today. We've also got a package for the autosave and logout, which we demoed. Was it January, Dawn? I forget when we did that last.
January or September or December.
December. Okay. So let's make you presenter, and you can show them how to add that technique. So we don't have an XML template part. We use a lot of these things called XTPs, XML template parts, to support easy addition of these techniques to your forms. You just add the XTP. It's got the resource files. It's got the rules. It's got the section. In the first demo we did with the fadeaway, we didn't create an XTP for that. We just didn't have time for today's webinar. But in general, we try to do XTPs for everything. And Dawn, actually, you created an XTP for this second technique, this auto logout technique, right?
We already have the auto logout XTP.
Okay, great. You want to walk us
Are you
through
seeing
that?
my screen now?
Yep.
Okay, so first I'll show the demo form for this one. So what the auto logout XAP needs is a trigger. So you usually trigger this on form load. So for this form, I'll just click this, and we're running a timer, as you can see here. And then in a few seconds, it's going to pop up. Okay, and then we're running another timer. So if you don't click this, it's going to automatically log you out from your form. And it's going to provide you with a link to reopen your form.
That's pretty cool. This is much more feature rich than the demo.
Yeah, so you can click it from here. So what this is doing is similar to what Mel explained earlier. It's grabbing the XMLs and comparing it, but the difference is that it's doing it in the background using the custom refresh command, which is being called on form load. So let's see here. Runtime, which is this one. Okay. Countdown. It's this one. This is the custom refresh command. So we'll need a CSS. Sorry, a JS script for this. And this is what's happening here.
That's included in the XTP, right?
Yeah.
So unlike Mel's demo, they just add the XTP and they've got it, right?
Right.
Okay. Cool.
next thing I'll show is the custom refresh command, how it works. So this is the refresh sample form. So on form load, you can see here it's running the load resource with the refresh.js file, and you need to trigger it so that it's going to run. So this is triggering the trigger one node here every second that is indicated here. So what this is doing is it's doing an incrementing. It's adding 1 second to this field over here. So let me show that. Or,
Does that mess with the focus if the user is filling out the form?
yeah, it does. So first, let me show this. So it's just adding 1 every second to this field here. So in order to fix that, Jimmy added this refresh parameter, and what it does is it's going to refresh or refresh the screen, and it has a code which removes the focus on the focused field, so
Okay,
it's
good. Yeah,
it's not going to tab you out.
So I mean, by default, that should be like off, right?
Yeah, by default. So you just need to call the refresh
So
to
is there
true.
ever a case where you'd ever want it to be on? You wouldn't want it to be on because if the user's
Yeah,
filling out the form, they're going to get interrupted every second or so. That's going to be terrible. So
yeah.
the
So
default is that it's off, right?
yeah, you can see here it taps me up every time. So if you set this to true,
Now
and
now you
there's
can type.
yeah.
Gee, that seems
So
okay. Great. Okay, cool. But
yeah.
you can test it, I guess. You can show that. Yeah. And Donald, this sample here, this is really cool. Where is this in the download from InfoPath Dev as well?
No, this is the refresh sample form Jimmy gave.
Okay, so we should probably
Just to
upload this to
show this.
InfoPath Dev too, right? Because this is pretty
Yeah.
useful. It's
Mhm.
a nice way to explain the technique. Great. So they just add that XCP to their form and they're good to go. I know we're running out of time here, but it's as simple as that, right? How
Yeah.
fast is it to do?
Um, less than a minute.
Go for it.
I'll go for it. Okay. Uh, so
Blank
let me
form is
just
fine.
open up a blank form materials. So assuming that you already have it on your form. So there, I'll log out. Um, first I need to trigger or configure the rules temp here.
So
Type
by saying you
commands
already
in
have it, you mean already adding it to the designer, right? They have to take the XCP and then they go in and they add it as a custom control, and then they can select it at the top there, right? So that's
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, and I'm just setting the result and other key rules nodes to the actual key rules node.
I can tell you've done
And
this before.
afterwards add a onload rule here to trigger the XTP all log out which one? Run timer. This one to go. And then that's it. It's already set to uh it's already setting the config to a
Can you
specific
upload
time.
this and
So
show it working?
I'll just set this to a lower time.
Okay.
So 300 seconds. Let's set this to, let's see, 5. Show log out. Set this to 3 seconds.
That's cool. You can configure that.
Mhm.
And then you got all of those rules just because that's the beauty of the XML template part. The XTP is you can just add that to your form, and it gives you all those rules, the resources, and the view component too, right?
Right. Right. I'll just create a new one here.
Did you upload it? I didn't see that. It was pretty fast. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I got you.
I'm still uploading it.
If anyone has questions for Don, this is a great time to ask them. We're going to wrap up here in just another minute or two. And this is a more advanced technique. Obviously, that's why we created the XTP for it. But as you can see, it's pretty easy to add to your form. And this is probably one of the most useful things that you'll want to add to your form. Obviously, don't configure it to time out in 5 seconds, but yeah, the default is 30 minutes, right? Or 300 seconds is 5 minutes. Okay.
Why is it not running? Maybe I forgot something. Just let me double check.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it started the run timer.
Yeah, it didn't perform the get XML.
Do you know why? Oh, no worries. Sorry to put you on the
Yeah,
spot, Don.
I'm not sure at this
I'm
point.
going to switch back to my screen here and just wrap up while you're checking on that. So well, that's it for today. Thanks again for being here. We really appreciate you joining us. Like I said, we'll send you the package with these techniques, the XTP, the links to them, and the presentation slides. So once again, very cool techniques today. The pop-up, the fadeaway pop-up is really nice. In fact, every pop-up from here on out should be fadeaway, just because it's a nice technique. And then the auto log out is also something I highly recommend. And if you have questions, once again, please do add them. We are working very hard to get Forms Designer out for the training at the end of April. If you haven't registered for the training, we're going to cap the class size at 15 people, and I think we're about halfway there. So go to our.
I figured it out.
You did? Okay, let me switch back to you, Don.
Yeah, so the problem was I need to start this run timer and set this value to start, not go.
Okay, go for it. I'll
So
just
this
quickly switch back to you if you want to share out and show.
Set this to start, and then I've uploaded it, and it should now work.
So go was
And
not good enough. So go. It had to start. That's kind of interesting because usually we'll say go. There it goes. All right. And now you've got 3 seconds before it. Oh, that was it. It shows the first pop up after the 5 seconds, and then it shows this one after 3 seconds, right? I really like how you get the click here to reopen. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's I didn't see that before. All right. Thanks for fixing that. I'm going to switch back again to my slide. We're almost done here. Just one quick shout out here. We are working very hard to get the Forms Designer done 1.0. We've shipped beta and 15 or 16 different sprints after beta last year. So we've had a lot of activity with it. And we have a test version, a beta version that you can download and you can start using. We've got several customers actually actively using it and complaining to us about various things. But Forms Designer 1.0 is really meant to be, the major features in InfoPath Designer that you would need to build a form, to edit your forms, and so on. And so we've got a few things remaining, mainly regarding data connections and configuring them. Jimmy's made a tremendous amount of progress on this, and we're going to be demoing it, showing it in the training. Last training we did was the end of November, beginning of December of 2021. We had about, I want to say, a day and a half of the labs. Maybe it was a little more than that. About 30%. There's 4-day training, and we did about 30% of the labs with Forms Designer. And our goal for this next training is to do more than 60%. More than 2 days worth of the labs. You typically will have three to 4 labs per day, showing you new techniques or showing you previous techniques that are very useful and you should know about if you haven't done it before. So that's our goal. If you haven't registered for training, go to our Qdabra.com website. Just Google Qdabra webinar education, and there should be a registration link for the training. Once again, we're going to cap the size of the class to do that sooner rather than later. Thanks a lot for being here today. If you've got ideas for the next webinar, we do have the next webinar. In fact, let me show you what those are, because we've got a lot of things coming, actually. We've had a flurry of innovations here at Qdabra this year. And once again, I'm just going to do what I mentioned earlier to search for Qdabra education. And here's where you go to click on that registration there, right there. And then if you click on the webinars link, you'll see the upcoming schedule here. This is actually a Forms Your Form rendering. There's the webinar for today. We've got, we actually did transient pop-ups, so we're going to change the 317 one to be something different. But we've got a couple of new techniques coming that I know you're going to want to know about, and that is this faster paging. So Hillary and Jimmy both came up with a very cool way to improve the performance of dashboards that query large amounts of SharePoint data. And we also have a new technique that Jimmy came up with, which is highly advanced. I would say it's like a level 400, showing you how to do unique values. You know, in the drop downs, you can actually select in Information Designer, show only unique values. That's something that we support in Forms Viewer, but it's relatively not fast. So we've got a fast way to do that. And that's coming up in May. And you can see we've got a testimonial here at the end of this month, along with, we've got a new version of Forms Viewer extensions. Actually, this is the most important webinar for you to watch next. This is in 2 weeks. We postponed this from the end of February because Microsoft had a bug in SharePoint, actually, and they fixed it. So this week they fixed it. So we're going to be able to show this this webinar here in 2 weeks. We might actually move this up to next week. And this is really cool because we're actually showing you how to hide the new button. So that right now, if your users go to a SharePoint library and they'll see the new button at the top, they'll click on that and it'll try to open up InfoPath, because it's still configured. That's the default configuration. But you've got Forms here, so you don't want them to click on that. So we're going to show you how to hide that. The new Forms Viewer extensions actually has a checkbox. You just check it. You run Forms Viewer extensions. It'll actually hide that button. And then what you can do is you can rename the Forms Viewer icon, which shows up in the top bar. And the Forms Viewer icon can be renamed to be just the icon plus new. And then your users will just click on that to open up a new form. So I'm really looking forward to that. It's a very simple thing, but I think it will improve your usability if you're using SharePoint libraries or lists, for that matter, to open forms as opposed to dashboards. So once again, thanks for being here. I don't see any new questions, but we really appreciate you and look forward to talking with you again next week. Have a great day. Thanks again, Mel, Don, awesome job.
Thanks. Take care, everybody.